We're going to do Flamewaker. Hey, welcome to the Hearthstone Half Hour, and I am Hammy, and as always this is Felcraft. Hope you're well and good in our New Player Monday. As always, we're going to be taking a look both at the cards and how it plays, and then jumping into a few games at Flamewaker Mage. Flamewaker Mage, May 2015, very much a thing that's popped up with Blackrock Mountain. The new Blackrock Mountain cards have given Flamewaker to the maging world, and Flamewaker is fun, and Flamewaker is love, and Flamewaker is life to many people, because this kind of deck, you can play it with spells, it's fun, it's cheap in terms of dust, you don't need to be buying loads of legendaries really to go ahead and make this work for you. So let's have a look at it, see how it works, see a build. This is not the build, you can play even more aggressive spell orientated builds of this, but you can see from our mana curve, we live fast and die young, we get rich or die trying if we're 50 cent, and the reason for that is you can see our mana curve is very heavily orientated to the early game. A late game control deck, this is not spells, face, pretty much, but with some interesting play spells, a couple of decisions you've got to make, and just some overall around solid trading options. What do we do? Well, let's have a look at the star of the show. Flamewaker. After you cast a spell, deal 2 damage randomly split amongst all enemies. Well, what happens if you combine that ability with a lot of cheap spells? Mages have got a lot of cheap spells. Mages have got a lot of 1 mana spells. What if we combine those 1 mana spells with a Sorcerer's Apprentice? Meaning that instead of paying 1 mana, we pay 0 mana. What happens if we then throw out a Flamewaker and a Sorcerer's Apprentice and then just play Arcane Missiles, Mirror Image? You can see how many 2 damages we're going to be getting out of Flamewaker, and of course that damage is random. If there are no other minions on the table, then that random is not so random, for we will be hitting our opponent straight to the face with 2, lots and lots, which is always good. However, you may well be strafing away at your opponent's minions, and that is absolutely fine as well. So how does this kind of stick itself together? We need to survive, we need to get out of Flamewaker, we need to draw cards, we need to make sure that we can trade pretty well with our opponent, and then we need to burst our opponent down. And it's worth noting that some versions of this deck, or decks that play Flamewaker, aren't quite so early game focused. They try and move into the mid game. They've got a little bit more late game drops, sort of early to mid game drops, I'll say, well, later game drops than these is probably the best description. And they do things like Pyroblast, so you get your opponent low, and then you've got a 10 mana Pyroblast, so you can survive to the end of the game. You might have Sludge Belchers in things to make sure you can do damage and survive, get your opponent low enough, and then Pyroblast for the game. There's another version of this mage that does that. This, as its name suggests, is kind of tempo-y and also floods the table. So instead of trying to stabilise the game, we use things like Echo of Medivh to throw down even more small minions and get value from the minions that we played. Early game, well, we can throw up mirror images, but really we want to be drawing into a mana worm and controlling the table in the early to mid game. Unstable Portal will give us control, Loot Hoarders give us card draw, Scientists pull out our secrets, and we want to have our secrets very much. Counterspell keeps us alive, Mirror Entity you could even go to for the trades as well, trying to make sure that you can get something nasty from your opponent. Generally just whatever you get will help you survive, but you could go for things like Sludge Belchers if you're being tactical about it, and get options to drop. So lots of optiony things there. Ideally you're looking to get a table under control and stabilised, making sure your opponent's not run away with too many minions or pretty much 3/4 killed you if you're playing another rush deck. And then you can Flamewaker, you can potentially Sorcerer's Apprentice, or you can Flamewaker and just start throwing the small little things. You can start throwing out Mirror Images, Arcane Missiles, and then with your Flamewaker on the table, ideally you've managed to protect it with the Mirror Image. If not, hopefully there's nothing on the table that can nuke it. As soon as the Flamewaker hits the table, your opponent's going to be gunning for it. They're going to want to get rid of it. Spells will go on it. Minions will trade with it. All kinds of stuff. So you need a table under control, ideally, before Flamewaker hits it. Very important. The Echoes, you could drop these to 1. I've not used these. If you get 1 off with a nice solid table, if you manage to fire 1 off, then it's really, really handy. If you don't manage to make that play, then it can be a little bit of an awkward card. Two of them, one of them might sit in your hand a bit. But ideally, you're pulling back things like loot hoarders for more card draw, mana worms for pressure, getting more Flamewakers in case your Flamewakers are controlled away, and similar. Fireballs are nukes to remove big minions that are in your way, or to nuke your opponent to the face. They're almost a finisher. Because you don't have Pyroblast and things, you don't have huge nuking and finishing. And then Polymorph for a little bit of sheeping. Keep that. Remember, of course, it will trigger Flamewaker as well as Mana Worm and other things, and then Azure Drake gives you the spell damage, card draw, and a body to make trades. Unstable Portal, hopefully you get the YOLO Orange Jesus buff. And then Mana Worm, ideally your mulligan. You want to be grabbing that early game and making trades. So, all in all, this deck's quite straightforward to play, but if you're not drawing Flamewakers, and if you don't have loads of, table control in the early to mid game, if your opponent plays a control deck and you don't kill them, then you're going to have a real problem, or just straight out die. Right, that is Tempo Flood. That is this sort of Flamewaker style. This is but one list. So we're going to jump into a game now, and I'm going to try and show a little bit about how this can work. Now, bear in mind, of course, we're sort of rank 11. There might be a few sort of slightly funky decks. We will get some very strong and good decks. We will maybe get the still. You get the occasional odd deck still until you start getting into sort of the, rank 8, 7, 6. You start getting very, very consistent ladder type decks.
You asked for it.
Okay, so I'm mulligan. Against a Warlock, we could have a Zoo, we could have other things. A Mad Scientist is fine. I don't necessarily mind a Frostbolt. I'm going to double mulligan and look for some early cards. Flamewaker and Mirror Image. That's great. That's absolutely fine. But what I'm going to do is actually tap on the table. In fact, even better. Really, really excellent start here. So the Mana Worm gives me the option to push forward if I want. The Mad Scientist will let me pull my secrets. If I can save my Flamewaker and Mirror Image till Flame 4, I'm in a very strong position indeed. So, and even better, I've drawn into an Arcane Missiles. So this is a nice, nice couple of options. So my opponent's got a lot of targets. If this is a Handlock, which it is now increasingly looking to be, this is a good matchup for us. Because what we can do is, now, Flamewaker, can my opponent remove that on this turn? With difficulty, but let's see how it goes. So what can, if they've got a Soulfire, it's possible. They can Dark Bomb for 3, or if they've got something with Charge, it's going to be tough. I've got a very nice setup here. The problem is, though, that against a Handlock, Hellfire, down goes an Iron Beak Owl, and that is the perfect counter. Because that's going to give me all kinds of nasty problems. So I can make a trade, I cannot lose that minion. I can throw down a Loot Hoarder for card draw. Arcane Missiles could do quite a nice job here for us. So I'm going to throw down a Loot Hoarder. Now sadly, because of that silence, I'm not going to get the additional damage from Flamewaker. This is the perfect table where I would really like to get an Echo of Medivh. If I could throw down an Echo of Medivh now, it would be excellent, but I'm really at risk from Hellfire and Shadow Flame. There goes the Hellfire. Now, the Echo of Medivh is a little bit too late. In comes the secret. I'm getting a Mirror Entity, which is excellent against Handlock, of course. Very much looking forward to that. And in fact, I don't mind echoing of Medivh this hand. It's fine. And the reason for it being fine is that I get a Flamewaker back to hand. My opponent knows that. And I've got a free Mirror Image, and I can even throw down another Sorcerer's Apprentice. So we are in a nice sort of solid position, I think. Now, Handlock, I'm not going to lie to you, anything that's really late game is a better matchup for this deck, because you, like any aggro matchup, you try and rush them to the face. Now, that's probably Mortal Coil. Now you can see where the Echo is useful. If I played it with those 4 on the table, it would have been even better. Ooh, very nice indeed, very nice indeed. So, options here. Flamewaker goes down. I may as well Sorcerer's Apprentice. Drops my spells to 3, or throw down a Mirror Image. Now again, I'm still at risk of various shenanigans here. But, you know, Hellfire could hit the table. We could still see perhaps a Shadow Flame. It's pretty tough for a Handlock here now. Looking to things such as Healbot or anything that they can change into tanks. So 3 attack, 2 health, opportunities to pressure there. We're still going to get 2 out of that Flamewaker. Dark Bottom dealing 3. Well, that's removing damage, so sensible. Doesn't know, of course, I've got a Fireball in hand or nothing that they can actually do about that. In comes a coin for a 5-drop. New bots. There you go. So I do get a mirror entity. That's not going to do anything for me. So I have 2, 4. I do not quite. Or do I? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16. Job done. So you can see that even without. And there we go. Torrent of burst forward for victory. So that is, I would say, a good example of how this deck can work, but it's also an easy matchup against any late game control. Handlock is kind of like one of the best matchups this deck could have, particularly if the Handlock doesn't get its their particular combos early game. You know, got a Hellfire. I also had an excellent starting draw. That was pretty much the best starting draw we could almost have against one of the toughest, you know, matchups for our opponent, so a bit of struggle. This will be interesting. Are we going to be playing a mirror match? In which case, I quite like this starting hand. I'm going to keep that. Flame Cannon works for us. Loot Hoarder also works for us. Coining into a turn 2 Flamewaker also works for us pretty nicely, because we can then throw down the mirror image and similar. So we want to try and stockpile, but because we're playing a mage, Frostbolts could take out our Flamewaker. Fireballs could also take out our Flamewaker. So I'm going to tap on the table. No real point mirror imaging at this point. No real point coining into a Loot Hoarder. In comes a Fire Blast. Okay. So I can... Shall I take the risk? If my opponent really tries to remove this, I've got another one I can drop. So let's see how we can go. So, okay, in comes a secret. If that's going to be a mirror entity, that's not going to be fabulous. So I'm going to just test it out and see if it's a mirror entity, which it is. I've given my opponent cards. I never like giving my opponent cards, but it's better to give them that than a Flamewaker. I'm going to take the risk of my Flamewaker getting removed. So, table stable, Flamewaker, and then place down goes a Flamewaker, a 1-mana spell. Are we going to see? In comes an Arcane Missiles. I'm hoping that's not going to get too lucky. And then, of course, remember the additional 2 are going to come from the Flamewaker now. Still pretty nasty, but we're in a good position. So, Flame Cannon. Oh, I've got to... No, I can't quite pull it off. But Flame Cannon is great here. Removal, and then Unstable Portal. Dark-Eyed Skulker, 2 damage to all undamaged enemy minions. And actually, in terms of the lucky RNGs, I don't mind Dark-Eyed Skulker. Reason for that is because we know we're playing a mirror match, and we know that our opponent will have lots of low health minions. So Dark-Eyed Skulker will really shred our opponent's board. It's actually one of the best things we could have grabbed. Interesting, a Knife Juggler. There's a Mana Worm, potentially a Frostbolt there I'm expecting as well. Okay. So... I can do one of a couple of things. Now it's a risk taking this Flamewaker now. The Arcane Missiles may not actually get rid of things as much as I like. Okie dokie. Flame Cannon. In comes Flamewalker. So the options are very tempting to Dark-Eyed Skulker actually. I'm going to Dark-Eyed Skulker. Reason for that? Actually, look at the tempo swing that this can give us. Okay. Righty then. We are almost there. Righty then. Okay, sorry. Tap down. We should be reasonably good. And Ragnarok says in chat that was a nice combo. Yeah, it certainly was. Of course, lucky to get the Skulker, but sacrifice the Arcane Missiles, keep the Flamemaker alive, get a table clear. Right, so secret, if we're playing a mirror match, I could really expect a Flamewaker. But I can also remove my opponent's Flamewaker, most probably. So I'm going to take the risk that it's a second mirror entity, which it is. But then you can see this is where Flame Cannon is awesome. Removal. And Dark-Owned Skulker, surging forward. We've got some nice control of the game here now. Hopefully we should be in. Down goes Murloc Raider, so my opponent's not had as good luck as us when it comes to things. So Fireball and Frostbolt get me pretty close. I'm going to Arcane to start with. So we may as well. I could Unstable Portal. Unstable Portal. Then comes a Blood Cell Corsair, which we may as well throw down for free.
I can't do that.
And let's just get ourselves into position. Arcane Intellect for a double card draw. Our opponent can still pull us back, and all it takes is one nasty Unstable Portal, of course. And with a Wolf Rider charging on the table, Wolf Rider for Unstable Portal, pity our poor opponent who has had some nasty kinds of luck. Now I'm probably going a little bit excessively on the safe side here, but I may as well face. It's going to be quite hard for a little bit of a heal up here by our opponent, but we never know. Unstable Portal. It was just, our opponent had some terrible Unstable Portal luck, but then again, RNGesus is a factor in Hearthstone. You can never know what's going to happen. You never know. And there you go. See? Opponent now coming back. Here comes a Fireball. It would have been nice to have a counter spell. But this is not undoable for our opponent to come back from. Because I can't remember if I've used my other... I was about to say I can't remember if I'd used my other Fireball.
Someday I'll be just like you.
There you go. Boom. So, lovely stuff. Pops up to rank 10. So that's going to be it for our little Hearthstone Half Hour New Player Monday intro. That has only really given us a little flavour of Tempo Mage. Of course, against control or mid-game metas, this deck could struggle in an aggro matchup like the one we just had. It's really a question of who gets the better luck. And we saw me get some nice luck there. So, all well and good. But you saw us manage to pull a couple of combos together. We got a little bit lucky with our Unstable Portals. That Dark-Owned Skulker was fabulous. A really ideal draw against that Handlock that we were looking at as well. At least I assumed that it was probably a Handlock. And we saw a little bit of use of Echo of Medivh. In terms of cards and crafts, it's pretty cheap on the dust front. Probably about 3,000-4,000 dust or something. You are, of course, going to have to craft or obtain a few of the more epicness cards. But you can see in here Polymorphs, Fireballs, Arcane Missiles, all kinds of basic cards that you can get just as a standard mage. So if you're a new player, something like this might be a nice little thing to try. You do of course need Flamewaker from Blackrock Mountain. That is the main ingredient for success. Perhaps another mirror entity could be quite nice to give Mad Scientist a little bit more to pull into. There are other secrets that can be interesting. Other deck versions of this deck of course do run Pyroblasts. They do run all kinds of useful and nice things like that. You could also go for a more mid-range version, but this is the early game rushy, floody type. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to be back if you're loving the stream. That's us on microphone for today. We're going to be back for our arena tomorrow. So that'll be about the same bat time, same bat channel. If you're on YouTube, do come join us on stream sometime. We're twitch.tv/Felcraftcast Monday through Friday. The time's in the bottom left, and you can tweet us or see when we're live at Felcraftcasts on Twitter. YouTube, over almost, but not quite, almost 200 episodes of our Hearthstone Half Hour, so more deck intros and explorations like this, 2-minute deck guides, news, Hearthstone news, all kinds of things there. Hearthstone and then other games, Heroes of the Storm, and a few other fun things that we do, so do go check that out. Last but not least, website felcraft.org. We update that with videos and everything else from time to time. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully see you tomorrow on stream or on a stream soon. This is Felcraft, and I've been Hammy. Take it easy.